we save on the internet bandwidth, except the one who will be speaking, who is with us. Allow me, therefore, this morning to introduce Dr. John Dibane, who is here with us. Dr. John Dibane is a medical consultant turned leadership advisor, high performance strategic, and author. He has transcended the status of being an expert for hire of being extraordinary advisor to high-performing individuals and organizations. His ability to simplify the complex matters of life and business has made him an opinion maker and a thought leader who is no stranger in corporate and government boardrooms, conferences and seminars, and on radio and television. We are so much grateful to have Dr. Tibane with us this morning. Through his public seminars, as well as his audio learning programs and books that he has written, including Master Your Own Thoughts, Transform Your Life, Enlighten Leadership, and The Rest Blueprint. Dr. Tibane has become a constant voice of reason in Southern Africa and many parts of the world. He holds a degree in medicine and surgery, a diploma in business management, and a master's degree in leadership and management. He is a lifelong student of business philosophy, human sciences, and spirituality. He has consulted and conducted interventions for various organizations for more than 2 decades. Dr. Tibane lives in Pretoria in South Africa. Please join me this morning as we welcome Dr. John Dibane, who is with us today. Dr. Tibane, over to you, as you'll be saying to us, we need to reset and thrive in the new normal. God bless you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sipho. What an honor for me to be part of this amazing conference. I am hoping that you can see my slide. Can you confirm that, Sipho?
Not yet. You can do the slide sharing, then I will let you know if we can see it.
All right, let's do this.
At the bottom, I think it's a green button.
Yeah, we have tried this not long ago. I don't know what has happened now. Is it showing now?
Still not yet.
All right.
Here we go. It looks like it's coming in. Yeah,
Fantastic.
You can put it on a slideshow, then we are ready to go.
Thank you so much to all the organizers, and especially Natalie. You've been working so hard. You kept us abreast. Thank you so much for working behind the scenes just to make sure that this conference becomes a success. But we also know that they are leaders of the Association of Christian Media. Thank you so much for this opportunity for me to just share some thoughts with you this morning. I'm going to be speaking on this little subject, reset and thrive in the new normal, obviously as a contribution to the main theme of this year's virtual conference, which is really exhorting us to stand firmly grounded in a turbulent world. And indeed, this world is turbulent. And that is why I would like to begin by painting the context for our conversation today. And the context really comes from the fact that each one of us, whether as an individual, as a family, as a business, as an organization, as a nation, or even as a world, we each experience what we would call a catalytic event. And it could be many events in our lives. But a catalytic event really is an event that comes to obliterate what would be your normal, and it makes it an old normal. It literally gets rid of what used to be your normal. That which used to be familiar to you, that which used to be a linear and predictable world. it takes it away, and that is why we now call it an old normal. Now, that catalytic event could be a divorce in your personal life. It could be insolvency of your business. It could be an earthquake that comes to destroy your building. It could be a tsunami. It could be COVID-19 pandemic. It could be something that comes in slowly, but it still disrupts the way things happen, such as the fourth industrial revolution. It's not, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's catastrophic, but it is still a catalytic event in the sense that it really disrupts and changes the way we have been doing things. But this is really not a surprise, because the world is really cyclical and it is rhythmic. There are ups and downs. The Bible tells us that as long as the earth remains, there shall be seed time and harvest time. But beyond just that kind of time, we also know that there will be winter and summer. There will be cold and hot. There will be night and day, etc. So these rhythms are there. These cycles are there, up and down, up and down. But it so happens that sometimes the downs or the lows become so low that it affects the way we have been doing things, and sometimes we can even call it a crisis. And these things are happening all the time. They are cyclical. The major ones may take long to come back, but there will always be cycles of catalytic events in our lives. So a catalytic event obliterates what used to be your normal, and it makes it an old normal. And then it births a new season, a new context, a new world, a new system, and we call this the new normal. In the business world, as early as 2014, the American Army actually gave us a description of what the new normal or the new world looks like. They call it the VUCA world. Those letters there, V meaning our world has become more volatile. If something is volatile, it means that it's almost like flammable. So if you make a small mistake in the new world, it translates into a bigger problem. So it's almost like there's a bit of paraffin or petrol just by lighting, just by throwing a small flame into it, it causes it to become a bigger flame. So small errors today, small errors in the VUCA world, they translate into something much more bigger, which means that we need to be more careful in the VUCA world because it is volatile. But it is also unpredictable and uncertain. We never know what will come next. Why? Because it's a volatile world, so therefore it is easy for things to escalate into things that we never thought we could imagine, because now the world is unfamiliar and it is non-linear and it is discontinuous. But then the world is also very complex, which means that there are many dots that we must connect more than before. For a long time, we were not allowed to get out of our houses or go do certain activities like going to a hair salon. And it happened with me that the first time I was able to go to the hair salon, my hairstylist, when I walked in, he said, I see you've got a mask on. You can put it in your pocket. We are going to give you our mask so that if it gets dirty, then you can use your normal mask, or you continue with your mask. But if you go out of here, we are going to give you a disposable mask. Now, that's a very small little thing, but guess what? It is a complex world in the sense that now this hair salon has another additional dot to connect. In the past, they didn't have to budget for disposable masks for their customers. But now, as a budget item, as a line item, it needs to be there in their budget. They must budget for it. Even if they have not yet increased the prices for doing the same hairstyle or the same hair work that they normally do, but now they must budget for that. Now, that may look like a very small thing, but in the context of your own business, of your own organization or entity, whether it's an NGO or a media house or whatever it is, there are many more dots now to connect because our world is more complex. But also the letter A there, it means that it is ambiguous, it is ambivalent. In other words, there's now a thin line between what is right and wrong, what is acceptable and not acceptable, what will please your customer and what will not please your customer. That which used to be a norm yesterday is not necessarily a norm today. Now, that's the kind of the world that we live in right now, which has been ushered by two major forces, one being the fourth industrial revolution. And I need to emphasize on this because even if COVID was not there, the fourth industrial revolution has already obliterated the old world and brought in the new world. Except that with COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an acceleration of that. And we have been almost like pushed much more faster and forced to now embrace this new world, which has already been somehow created by the fourth industrial revolution. But obviously, the catalytic event called COVID-19 pandemic has added other aspects into the complexity of the new world, such as, of course, social distancing, etc., 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 that we all know. But that's basically the context of what is happening, the context of what makes a world turbulent. It can be any catalytic event. And I would like to encourage all of us today to understand that as long as the earth remains, there will be heat and cold, there will be night and day, etc. We must understand. Of course, we may not get used to this thing, but we must understand it. In fact, King Solomon does say that in the day of prosperity, celebrate, but in the day of adversity, stop and consider the following. And what is it that you must consider? And that is, both have been appointed by God. Both the heat and the cold, both the night and the day, both the winter and the summer, they did not take God by surprise. Now, that may sound obviously funny, but I think it's an encouragement to know that we do need to expect that there will be a day of prosperity and there will be a day of adversity. That is why this conference is becoming important. Stand firmly grounded in a turbulent world. That's the day of adversity. And I am saying we need to reset so we can thrive in the new normal. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. But in this context of the VUCA world, of the new normal, and whatever way you want to describe your world, I would like to suggest that each one of us must have 3 success objectives. Whenever you experience a crisis that obliterates your normal and make it an old normal and brings about a new normal, there are 3 success objectives each one of us must have, either as individuals or as organizations. What are those objectives? Number 1, in the middle there on the screen, you need to survive the catalytic event. Whatever it is, survive it. Whatever it is, you're going through a divorce, survive it. That's the first thing, survive it. Technical recession in your country, survive it. COVID-19 pandemic, survive it. Whatever it is, that is a catalytic event. The first objective is to survive it. Do whatever you need to do to survive it, and trusting that God will be on your side so to survive it. Your organization must survive the catalytic event. The second objective is to let go of the past. Let go of the old normal. It doesn't matter how much you were in love with the old way of doing things, with the old way of conducting your business, with the old way of living. It is now old. It's an old normal. Let go of it. And the third objective, you are now faced with a new normal, a new world. You need to thrive in that new world. In other words, you don't get into it as a loser. You don't get into it as a victim. You don't get into it as an underdog. If you have been thriving or succeeding in your business in the old normal, and the catalytic event came to wipe it away, and it gave birth to a new normal, have a determination and an objective to say, I will thrive even in the new normal. The same God that was with me in the old, he is still the same God. His power has not decreased. And I still think correctly, and I still trust him. And I still believe that all things will continue to work together for my good, even in the new normal. It's an objective that you must have. So 3 objectives: survive the event, let go of the old normal, thrive in the new normal. But for these 3 things to happen, you need to have 3 qualities. And in this discussion, I will focus more on the last quality, which is resetting, because that's my subject today: reset and thrive in the new normal. But what are these 3 qualities? The first one is responsiveness. Responsiveness. For you to survive any event, you must be responsive. And responsiveness really means that you must see reality as it really is. In other words, don't wish it was something else. It is exactly what it is. If you have lost customers during this time, face those brutal facts. If you have lost some loved ones, face the brutal facts. Whatever that has happened, responsiveness means that don't be in denial. Things are no longer the same. Be responsive. Because if you are responsive and you see reality as it really is, you are able to mobilize the appropriate resources in order to deal with the thing. Unfortunately, many people would be in denial, and denial is tragic, and delay is fatal. So you need responsiveness. To let go of the old normal, you need a quality called resilience. Resilience. Now, the word resilience has often been defined as the ability to bounce back. But I am suggesting today that we need to change the definition of resilience. It's really not the ability to bounce back, because COVID-19 pandemic and many other forces have taught us that there is no back to bounce to. There is no yesterday to go back to. You can't go back to the past. So resilience really is the ability to bounce forward to the new normal. So it's almost like you need to be an arrow in a bow and arrow. So imagine the scenario, a bow and arrow. And in this scenario or this setup, for you to bounce forward, you need to be like an arrow. And this arrow is in the hand of a mighty warrior. And that mighty warrior is like COVID-19 pandemic, or it is betrayal, or it is divorce, or it is insolvency, or whatever it is, recession, etc. That is the hand of a mighty warrior, and you are an arrow in the hand of the mighty warrior. And that is pulling you back in this bow and arrow. You are being pulled back. Your time is wasted. You lose money. You lose customers. You close down some of your subsidiaries in your business. But guess what? The further backward you have been pulled, should you be released from the hands of the mighty warrior, and God has a way of making sure that you actually get released from the hand of the mighty warrior. The further backward you have been pulled, the further forward you will go. And when you go forward, you will pass the place where you have been and leave it behind. It's an old normal, and you go much more further into the future. But you need to make sure that you are an arrow, not just a stick. You are an arrow. An arrow has got a sharp pointed end, which means that you are focused, which means that you have got goals, which means that you know where you are going to, which means that you still have the target. You are targeting success. You are targeting prosperity. You are targeting thriving. You are targeting progress. So whatever is wasting your time, as long as you stay focused, it's critical, because as soon as you are released, the further forward you will go. And this is important when we go through difficult times like this. Our time may be wasted. Our efforts may be undermined, but don't lose focus. Remain an arrow that is targeting the promised land that is full of milk, honey, and grapes. There may be delays. There may be difficulties. There may be whatever things that are disturbing us. But once we are released, and if God is on your side, which mighty warrior will be against you? And when you are released, you will be propelled into the future. That is why you need resilience, bouncing forward into the new normal. But when you land there, even before you land there, you need to have a determination that I'm going to reset. I'm going to reposition myself. I'm going to reorganize myself. I want to re-strategize. Why? You might have been properly set for the old normal, but it's no longer there. You are now bouncing into the new normal. That is why you must reset. You might have been well set for the past, but the past is gone. There's a new context. There's a resetting that needs to take place. So with that in mind, let me just throw in one statement that comes from one powerful leader of old, an ancient statesman. His name, King Solomon, well known for a number of things, for wisdom and many more other things, and of course known as a writer and as a poet. And he writes in Proverbs 22:3. And he says, a prudent man, and the word prudent means careful thinking, careful thinking. Prudence means careful thinking. So a prudent man, somebody who thinks carefully, foresees, yes, foresees. There's a new normal. Foresees evil and hides himself. But the simple pass on, and the word simple there means someone who does not think, someone who is foolish. But the simple pass on, and guess what? They are punished by the new normal. They are punished by what is ahead of them, because they just blindly went on without foreseeing, without analyzing, without taking precautions. And I like it in the NLT, New Living Translation. It says, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. So when you reset, You are taking precautions because you have foreseen the new normal, you have analyzed it, and you see that there is danger. And by the way, the new normal is not really dangerous in itself, but it is dangerous if we are not prepared for it. It is not evil in itself. What makes it evil is when we are not prepared for it. So there's really nothing with the new normal. It's just that if we are not ready for it and you have not taken precautions, it will punish you. It becomes dangerous and evil. But in itself, there is really nothing wrong with it. It's just a different world. But we have not been set up for it. And now we must reset. We must set ourselves up again relevantly for the new normal. And then it says the simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. I am hoping, therefore, that with a few suggestions I'm going to make now, I will be contributing to you so that you do not suffer the consequences, so that you will be able to take precautions. And I will be speaking at a high level because we are a mixed multitude in terms of people coming from different organizations. But if it was just one organization, will be focusing on the type of the organization that we are dealing with, but I know that there are NGOs, there are media houses, and there are many more others and ministries as well. So I will then talk in general terms. And when we reset, there are seven elements that need to be attended to. I call them the reset elements. Why these seven? Is because I have made an observation over the years as we have been helping organizations with turnaround strategies after they have suffered loss or they've gone through a difficulty or there's been a merger or any other thing that might have disrupted an organization and it wants to re-emerge and reinvent itself. What we have noticed is that whenever there's a crisis, specifically if the catalytic event is of a crisis level, there are seven things that become affected by any kind of crisis. The first is your sanity. So it's like you lose your mind. Yes, a crisis can make you lose your mind. If your salary has been halved because of COVID-19 pandemic, you can lose your mind. If you go through divorce or whatever it is, you can actually lose your mind. And that is why we must reset our sanity, because you can't get into the new normal with a lost mind. And I'll come back to it briefly. Another thing that gets affected is your sight. It's unbelievable how our ability to see clearly becomes affected by a crisis, whether it's a storm that makes it so dark you can see, or it's a hurricane or whatever kind of a cyclonic wind that causes so much dust which gets into your eyes and you can't see properly, or it's an emotional trauma, emotional crisis that is making you to cry and your eyes are full of tears. You can't see properly. But you see, for you to get into the new normal and thrive, yes, it's okay to cry because it's painful, but there comes a time when you have to wipe your tears away, because you can't possibly walk into the new normal with your eyes full of tears. If you do that, you are not foreseeing the new normal, and you are going to walk in blindly, and you are going to suffer the consequences. So you need to wipe your tears away. And that is what we talk about when we talk about reset your sight. Reset, because a storm has a way of making you to lose your sight. So you need to reset your sight. The third is the stage. When an earthquake comes, it shakes the foundation upon which your life has been built, upon which your organization has been built. And it is critical for you to reset the stage. You need to reset your sales. I'll talk about that shortly. Reset your standards, reset your scales, and reset your sound. I'm moving fast because I'm going to talk about each one of these. These are the only 7 things I'll be talking about. So you can look at them as your reset elements, excuse me, or your reset strategies that you need to be putting in place. So let's go through each one of them, except to just advise that, by the way, what I'm talking about comes from my recent book called The Reset Blueprint. This book was actually written last year when President Cyril Ramaphosa said, "Thou shalt not leave your house." Well, we had to stay in our houses. So some of us as speakers were not even yet on virtual platforms like we are now. It was just hectic. So I needed to find something to do for myself. And I thank God that I then started writing this book, The Reset Blueprint. Basically, part 1 deals with how to survive a crisis. And part 2 deals with how to thrive in the new normal. What I'm giving you today are 7 chapters summarized in part 2. And they deal with the 7 things that you need to reset. So the first, like I've said, is to reset your sanity. And here is a statement that you can take home for yourself. And that is, thought patterns will repeat themselves with a monotonous regularity and predictability unless they are confronted, challenged, and replaced. Let me say that again. Thought patterns, manners of thinking will naturally repeat themselves with a monotonous regularity and predictability unless we confront them, challenge them, and replace them with new thoughts. This is important because you might have been thinking in a certain way in the old normal, and that way of thinking was working well for you. Well, the old normal is now called old normal. It's old. And there is a new normal. If you do not intentionally reset your thinking, you are most likely to move from the old world into a new world with the old patterns of thinking, which might have worked in the old world, but they are not working in the new world. And this is a very critical thing. Even when you use a metaphor of what Advocate Paul of Tarsus said, that you can transform your life by the renewing of your mind. Why? So you can be able to prove or to test or to discern that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Basically, there are 2 worlds there. He's talking about from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light. The world of darkness is a certain world system that you are being translated from into another world system, which is driven by God, which is driven by certain rules and regulations. And there's a will of God that operates in this world. Now he says, now that you have been transferred from that world to this world, that must be followed by the renewal of your mind. So you can discern, you can prove what is this acceptable, good, and perfect will that operates here. So in the same way, it is through the renewal of your mind that will make you have the ability to discern or to prove or to test what is this good, acceptable, and perfect way of conducting your life in the new normal. It requires resetting your sanity reset your sanity. So issues of philosophy, you need to go back and challenge your organization about what is your business philosophy. Because you may find yourself in the new normal, but you're still applying the philosophy of yesterday. You see, if you bring the strategies of yesterday into the present or into the new normal, you are also bringing the drama together with those strategies. So it's important, we don't have enough time to deal with this, but it's really important that you need to just make sure that you are not walking into the new normal with a mind that you have lost because of the crisis. The issues of paradigm shifting, issues of the premise or the thesis or your dissertation or your doctrine or your reason or your theory or your consciousness, whatever it is, or your theology or theophilosophy, like today's scholars talk about. But in simpler terms, your mindset. And what is a mindset? A mindset is a mind that is set on something. That's really what it is. Mindset is a mind that is set on something. In the old normal, you had set your mind on certain things because they were important in the old normal. Now is a new normal. Ask yourself, where am I going to set my mind on? Where am I going to, on what am I going to set my mind on? Maybe in the old normal, you really didn't take care of your customers that easily because, you know what, it was a monopoly. You were the only one providing those services, etc. And many people now have jumped into the industry. All of a sudden, there's many of you. Guess what? You may have to set your mind on customer care now. So it's really a decision that you need to be making yourself. What does the new normal, the new world demand of me to set my mind on? Basically, that's what it is. In your own personal space, in your own private life, in your organizational life, or whatever area of influence that you are in, reset your sanity. Secondly, as you can see, my time is getting closer to being finished, and I'm still on the first element, but that's okay. You will get the rest from the book, and I hope we'll also have some interactions in the future. The next one is reset your sight. Why? If the kind of storm or the kind of crisis that has come is a kind of crisis that you would say is a storm, well, it is so dusty, it's so windy, it's so cloudy, you can't see clearly. You have lost your sight in the process. But now you want to thrive in the new normal. Well, you need to reset your sight. Like I've said, it could have been an emotional crisis or storm that made you to cry, and you really needed to cry because it was painful. But you see, you can continue with your eyes full of tears. So maybe you are a lady, somebody promised you something or to marry you. I'm just making a strange example. And then 1, 2, 3, you hear that he's gone, is marrying someone else. Now that can be painful because you've invested your emotions into it, invested your time and blah, blah, blah. You cry. I understand. But you see, if God has got something fresh for you, as long as your eyes are full of tears, you can't see the new thing that the Lord has for you. That is why there comes a time when you need to wipe your tears away. Now, I'm just using metaphors to explain this, but it's important for you to take note of the following statement. If there is no place called there, and the only place we have is the place called here, then change and transformation are unnecessary. Let me say that again. If there is no place called there, and the only place we have is a place called here, then moving forward, then progress, then development, then change and transformation is unnecessary. But whether you like it or not, as long as you're under my voice right now, I tell you there is a place called there. As long as you have a dream, as long as you have a destiny, as long as you have a tomorrow, there is a place called there. Now, that place called there, which is like in the future, you better foresee it and take precautions, or else that place called there will punish you. That place called there will be danger to you, will be evil to you, and you will suffer the consequences. And that is why resetting your sight becomes important. There are 5 strategic questions that you may need to ask yourself. We won't finish this presentation because of time, but the whole presentation will be made available for you, and you can have conversations with yourself and with your team on a number of things on this. But on resetting your sight, you can ask yourself 5 questions. The first question is, what kind of a place is a new normal? I ask you and I beg you, please, have this conversation with yourself first as an individual. Then call your team. Have a conversation. What kind of a place is the new normal? Let's have that conversation. That's foreseeing. That's analyzing. That is why we talk about you. Paul says you must walk circumspectly. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the times, because post-COVID time is dangerous, is evil, not in itself, but if we are not prepared for it. And the word circumspect, walk circumspectly. The word circumspect is a grammatic construct of 2 words. The first word is circum, which means around or periphery or environment. And the second word is spect, which is a root word for a Latin word, which means to see. So when you walk circumspectly, to walk circumspectly, it means to walk being aware of the environment. But for you to be aware of the environment, it means you need to do environmental scanning. That's what we use in business, environmental analysis. Environmental analysis. Check what's happening around in the new normal and answer the question, what kind of a place is the new normal? The American Army in 2014, they said it is a VUCA world, volatile, unpredictable or uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. What do you call your the new world? What kind of a place is it? Then the second question, will I have space in the new normal? Because it's possible to find yourself in the place, but you don't have space. Yes, you are in the place, but you don't have space. In business terminology, the word space there, I mean market share. Yes, market share. You are a media house, but now you no longer have readers. You no longer have listeners. You no longer have any, but you survived. You are in the new normal, new place, but you don't have space. The others have squeezed you into the corner. I see Sipo there is telling me that your time is almost up, and I respect that. I will stop just with this slide. The others I'll just scroll through so that you see what's there without explaining them. What race will I run in the new normal? Because your race might have changed. And please be honest with yourself. You may have to change the kind of race. The race you are running in the old normal, it may have to be tweaked now. Different place now. So it's important for you. And the race, by the way, is not necessarily competing with others. Sometimes it's just competing with yourself. Maybe in the old normal you were lazy. Now you need to run and race against laziness. Maybe you were not paying attention to detail. Now you must outrun being clumsy. Maybe you were mediocre. Now you must outrun mediocrity. Maybe you were ruled by fear in the past. Now you must outrun fear, etc., etc. Where will I up my pace in the new normal? What are the areas where I must increase, whether it's productivity, profitability, customer care, you name them. Number 5, because of time, will I acknowledge and honor the grace for the new place, for the new normal? Because every place, every season, every context has its own grace. And if these first 4 questions are daunting to you and it feels so difficult, just be encouraged. His grace is sufficient for you. His grace is sufficient for you. So even just like Paul, you can say, I am what I am by the grace of God. And you can add, I do what I do by the grace of God. You can add, I have what I have by the grace of God. You can even add, I give what I give, for I'm grateful for the grace of God. So the others would be reset your stage. You've got some reference there. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? What can the right standing people do? What can the right meaning people do? If the foundations are destroyed, they will spend time and energy and money fixing the cracked walls, but they are not aware that they cracked because the earthquake hit the foundation. That's why it's called earthquake. The earthquake does not hit the walls, it hits the earth. And if you don't take care of the earth, whatever fixing of the wells you are doing in your company right now, if the crisis affected your foundation, but you are busy with the cosmetics, unfortunately, there will be cracks all the time. Reset your sails. Oh my goodness, I wish I had time, but don't worry about that. When you're sailing in a stormy weather, guess what? It is not the blowing of the wind that matters, but rather the setting of the sails. Don't shout against the wind. Don't shout against the wind, because your shouting will not change the direction of the wind, will not decrease the intensity and the velocity of the wind. All you need to do is to learn the art of setting sails, which means you may have to learn how to read the anemometer. You know what's an anemometer, C4? And the anemometer is the instrument that reads the speed of the wind when you are sailing in the ocean. You need to know how fast the wind is blowing and which direction it is blowing. So you need a compass as well, blah, 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 blah. Reset your standards. Man, don't worry about that. Reset your scales. Don't worry about that. Reset your sound. This was supposed to be actually a major conversation because many of you are into communication, media issues, etc. You need to check the sound and control the sound because after a storm, maybe please allow me 1 minute, Sipo, on this one so that just to summarize it. You know, imagine you were in a marquee and a president or whoever was speaking, a high-profile person speaking, or a musician performing in a big marquee, and then a storm came to blow against the marquee. We were evacuated for safety. Fortunately, the storm disappeared, and we are called back to recongregate. And there we are seated down to continue. Guess what, Sipo? Before the speaker goes onto the podium or the musician goes back to perform, you will see some young men or women wearing tekkies and jeans. What are they doing there on stage? They are resetting the sound because the PA system was affected by the storm. If they don't do that and the speaker goes onto the stage without having reset the sound, he or she will speak, but it is going to irritate us. Now, listen to me very carefully. Your customers, your stakeholders, your partners, etc. I tell you right now, COVID-19 pandemic or any other catalytic event has affected their ability to hear you. You need to reset the sound so that we can hear and understand one another. If you have gone through a divorce or you just had separation, now you are reconciling. It is post-separation. You are reconciling. Before you go on, reset the sound. Otherwise, you are going to be irritating each other. Let me stop right here because, of course, it's a hamors. You can see, it's a serious hamors.
Tibane,
Tibane, yes.
Tibane, yeah, Tibane. That so-called hamors of yours is really putting me now in a hamors. I wish I was not the program director for this session. Because now I have to stop something that I believe all of us are so much engaging with you. You've just taken us to another level. And because of time now, I'm the one who must stop this fantastic presentation. And I really regret why I've taken to be the MC for this session. Someone else probably would have led it. But I need to say thank you so much. This was really interesting. This was a fantastic presentation. I guess this is something that we need the full day with you to take us properly in all these steps. So I really appreciate it, and thanks a lot. And I believe that everyone who is part of this, they also were listening. I just want to take this time. I see there's few questions that I have and great appreciations that I see on the chart. I will try and summarize as best as I can in the next few minutes the questions that I see on the screen. While I'm trying to scroll up, because there's lots of typing here, you will recall that I think it's the chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus, last year, and he was talking about the economic indicators which are painting a concerning picture in the world, you know, that this COVID-19 is bringing to us a very sharp economic downturn, and we could face the worst depression as the world since 1930s, I think. And I saw one question here which asked us, particularly us as the media house, to say, what is it that we can do to influence the narrative of this unforeseen new normal, that this new normal to other people is coming with depression. We see hundreds of people dying, the worst public health crisis in recent history that we are seeing, people become retrenched. And here we are saying, reset, you know, reset your life. But then I think the question I saw here it was Rudolph. Yes, Rudolph. He was asking, how can Christian media influence the shape of this new normal? How do we influence the narrative as the Christian media? And he continues and say how media help to both shape the vision of the future African societies and also to inspire the action to practically implement the desired future in communities. I hope that is clear.
Yeah, it is clear, and it's a very broad question. If we learn from the economic side of things, it's amazing how even the stock markets can literally respond based on who said what. Now, the truth is the crisis is real, but how we communicate what this thing is about, it becomes important, and perhaps the whole issue of let's reset the sound so that people also hear the things that will be helpful. I believe in what I call outcomes-based communication. Outcomes-based communication. In other words, when you communicate, what are the outcomes that you want to see from your communication? So yes, as a media house, you may be, you know, it is mandatory for you to tell the facts as they are, but you also have room to tell the truth, because it's one thing to tell the facts, but it's another thing to tell the truth. So what is it that you are communicating these facts with? What are you attaching to the facts so you can influence? Because remember, at the end of the day, people think the way they think and feel the way they feel and act the way they act because of the way they have been taught or treated. Taught or treated. So the way we think is because of the way we've been taught or treated. So if you meet a person who has been treated badly and he or she hates relationship or hates something, then you change the treatment. You may find that they are going to change the way they look at it. If you change the teaching, if we are bringing new information, new ideas, new concepts, that will affect the way people think. And as they think, so they will be. And as they are, so they will do. And as they do, then they will influence the results. And it is the results that are going to shape the new world. So we must have the courage as Christian folk to continue communicating the messages that we know will bring the outcomes that we want to see.
Wow. I've been given to be the program director, so I'll break the rules just for 2 minutes because there's another question. We're supposed to be closing now, but because I'm the program director, I'll take that liberty of breaking the rules for 2 minutes. This is very interesting, Dr. Tibane. There's another question here from Skip. He says, I think it's a comment kind of like question, which it would be lovely to hear your response on it. He says, I think business understands the reset principle. Question is, what is happening in the minds of church leaders in general? I think the new normal results in a lot of mental health implication. I think the comment here is about, yes, maybe from the business side, people do understand the time, but in terms of the religious leaders, the church leaders, do we or do they understand that we need to reset the party?
Well, the answer is yes and no. And it's the same answer, by the way, even in business. It's yes and no. There are businesses that really, really understand that. And there are those that are not understanding. And there are many like Kodak, for example, which was a leading company when it comes to taking photos, etc. You know that they didn't understand that they needed to reset. The Nokias of this world, they didn't understand that they needed to reset into smart technology, not just mere technology, but smart technology. The world was becoming more smarter. They didn't understand that. That's the business side. But also on the church side as well, it's a yes and no. There are some churches today, and we busy do their strategic planning, etc., where literally they have a reset a session where they go out and just reset the way they've been thinking, etc. But of course, the majority of many of these religious bodies, they don't at all, because they are saying that our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Of course, our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, but the seasons are not the same. The seasons are not the same. He's the same God, but he is with us in different seasons. And we better wake up, and he will be with us in the seasons, but we need to reset and know that it is a new season and it's a new world, and we must renew our mind. So we should prove what is this good, acceptable, and perfect will of God in the new world.
You are loaded. You are loaded. And thank you so much. It was quite interesting. And I saw some comments also in the chat box with the new definition of resilience. You know, we all knew resilience as the capacity to recover quickly from whatever difficulties. And here you are, you're saying it's the ability to bounce forward, not even back. We need to bounce forward. So thank you so much, Ntate Tibane, for this wonderful time. And I see a lot of people say, oh, ACM, please, can we have a session with this man, just more than just an hour? I guess my chairman here, Nathan and Natalie, they are noting that. And we really appreciate your time, and God bless you. Thank you for giving us this hour. And we could see that it's really not enough. But thank you. Much appreciated. And may the Lord bless you in all your endeavors and in everything that you do.
Thank you so much.
Your book is out.
Yeah, it's at the Kum Bookstop. The Reset Blueprint, it's at Kum Bookshops, bookstores. You can find it there, and also exclusive book. Thank you so much. God bless you. May you continue well in the session. Thank you.
Be blessed, sir. Be blessed. Thank you so much, everyone. This is the time I don't know where to start now, because this was just fantastic. So thanks a lot for being with us, and thank you for all your comments.